Today, millions willingly cross finish lines and collapse in a state of absolute exhaustion. Running 26.2 miles pushes the human body to its limits, yet we celebrate it as a standard of fitness. But the origins of this race are decidedly less healthy. In 490 BC, a Greek messenger named Pheidippides supposedly ran approximately 25 miles from the battlefield of Marathon to Athens to deliver news of a military victory. According to the legend, he shouted his message and immediately dropped dead on the spot. When organizers of the first modern Olympics in 1896 wanted an event to recall the glory of ancient Greece, they decided to recreate this lethal run. They staged a race along that exact historical route into the Panathenaic Stadium, turning a story of fatal exhaustion into a competitive sport. Early iterations of the race were a chaotic mess. During the 1904 Olympics in St. Louis, the temperature soared over 90 degrees on a dusty course. One runner was chased nearly a mile off the route by wild dogs. Half the field collapsed from the heat, and several competitors nearly died from dehydration and exposure. 4 years later, at the 1908 London Olympics, organizers added a strange geographic detour. They extended the course to exactly 26 miles and 385 yards, so the race could start beneath the window of the royal nursery at Windsor Castle and finish in front of the king's viewing box. That arbitrary royal addition became the official global standard, an event born from a myth about a man running himself to death and defined by early Olympic disasters, was permanently locked in as a highly dangerous test of human endurance. For decades, the distance remained an obscure obsession for a handful of extreme athletes. Then, in the 1970s, amateur participation exploded. Suddenly, massive crowds of recreational runners were flooding city streets to attempt the distance. An activity that historically caused physical collapse and was viewed by early Olympic directors as beyond safe human capability is now a global fitness obsession. Human psychology is fundamentally driven by a need for goal completion. We aren't evolved to be permanently satisfied. Completing 26.2 miles acts as a powerful social signal, demonstrating the extraordinary levels of self-sacrifice and dedication required to endure such an extreme endeavor. Today, millions voluntarily subject their bodies to this extreme physical stress test. It forces medical science to look closely at what actually happens inside those runners to determine if covering that distance is destroying our hearts or protecting them. To understand how the body survives this stress, we can look at the absolute peak of human physiological mastery. In 2019, Kenyan runner Eliud Kipchoge did what was previously thought biologically impossible. He completed a marathon distance in under 2 hours. Analytical. This animated chart shows the oxygen cost required to maintain a fast running pace. It highlights a core metric called running economy. Think of it as the body's miles per gallon rating. While a recreational runner burns large amounts of oxygen to move forward, an elite athlete requires significantly less oxygen to sustain the exact same speed. Maintaining that efficiency over 2 hours requires a distinct metabolic trick. The body stores energy as glycogen, but those reserves run out long before mile 26. Elite runners must seamlessly shift to metabolizing fatty acids, a slower, more abundant fuel source, to avoid depleting their glycogen and hitting a state of total fatigue. This level of efficiency is systematically built. In Kaptagat, Kenya, elite runners train at high altitudes, forcing their blood to carry oxygen more effectively. They also accumulate a staggering volume of work, routinely running up to 150 miles every single week of the year. Despite the intense physiological demands of this training, the fuel they use to recover is incredibly basic. Their high running economy is supported by a simple, carbohydrate-heavy diet consisting mostly of bread, honey, and tea. Top-tier performances rely on a high metabolic steady state. These athletes have meticulously engineered their biomechanical and metabolic efficiency to delay exhaustion as long as possible. While elites make the distance look smooth, the internal reality is violently demanding. If we look at medical data from runners crossing the finish line, we can audit the acute physical damage sustained over hours of continuous impact. This line graph maps the levels of cardiac troponin in the bloodstream. Immediately post-race, you can see these specific biomarkers spike dramatically into the red zone. Combined with observed right ventricle dysfunction, The blood of a freshly finished marathoner mimics the exact clinical profile of someone experiencing a heart attack. Despite the immediate appearance of injury, the troponin levels typically return to baseline within days. This temporary, severe stress acts as a catalyst for growth rather than permanent destruction. The cardiovascular system literally remodels itself in response to the strain. This adaptation, known as athlete's heart, leads to enhanced diastolic function, meaning the heart fills with blood more efficiently. It also results in a measurable reduction of epicardial fat surrounding the heart itself. The 26.2 miles force the body to endure extreme, heart attack-like acute stress, specifically so the cardiovascular system is compelled to rebuild itself into a much stronger, more resilient engine. When we zoom out from the finish line and look at large-scale epidemiological data, we get a clear medical verdict on the long-term impact of running marathons. This comparative chart displays the prevalence of cardiovascular disease. The data shows a stark contrast. Regular marathon runners experience a 17% prevalence rate, compared to nearly 35% in the age-matched general population, alongside significantly greater overall longevity. To secure these health benefits without suffering the lethal fate of the earliest marathoners, athletes have to approach the distance with respect. That means balancing the extreme volume of training with strict, dedicated recovery protocols to let the heart properly heal. By applying the modern science of running economy and respecting the biology of adaptation, the marathon has transitioned from a lethal ancient legend into a clear example of how controlled extreme stress can rebuild the heart and significantly extend human life.